A massacre in Syria has left over 1,000 Alawites dead, with Turkey-backed HTS factions accused of carrying out ethnic cleansing. Women in Turkey took to the streets on International Women's Day, defying arrest, police repression and state restrictions. Dem Party held 8th March rallies across Kurdish-majority cities, denouncing the unelected government trustee in Van. And the main opposition CHP has pushed for democratic reform in Turkey, including a parliamentary commission to address the Kurdish issue. Learn more with Medya News. The international community is outraged as reports confirm mass killings in Syria's Alawite majority regions, with over 1,000 dead. Human rights organizations and officials, including the UN and US, call for justice, as evidence mounts linking the atrocities to Turkish-backed factions like HTS. The massacres raise fears of further regional destabilization. Syria's coastal governorates of Latakia and Tartus and parts of Homs have become the epicenter of a renewed wave of sectarian violence, resulting in the deaths of over 1,000 people, primarily from the Alawite community. This surge in violence has drawn widespread international condemnation, with the United Nations, the United States, the European Union, and major human rights organizations calling for accountability and immediate intervention to prevent further atrocities. In one video, militants can be heard pledging to march to the Kandil Mountains, referring to the Kurdistan Workers' Party or PKK headquarters in northern Iraq. This indicates an intent to expand their campaign far beyond Syria's coastal regions, raising concerns about potential escalations into Kurdish areas. Analysts warn that it also aligns with past Turkish-backed offensives that have used sectarian violence as a pretext for broader military campaigns, increasing fears of regional destabilization. The continued influence of Turkish-backed extremist factions, coupled with the interim government's failure to rein in HTS, presents an ongoing threat to stability. Calls for immediate accountability, sanctions, and humanitarian aid have intensified, with international actors facing mounting pressure to act before Syria descends further into chaos. Women in Turkey once again took to the streets on 8th of March International Women's Day, defying arrest, police repression and state restrictions. Thousands gathered in Istanbul's Taksim Square Inn for the 23rd Feminist Night March, pushing through blockades and arrests to make their voices heard. The slogan Jin, Jiyan, Azadi, or Woman, Life, Freedom, echoed through the streets, uniting women in their fight for justice and equality. In Diyarbakir and other Kurdish cities, women filled the streets, transforming the day into a powerful display of resistance. Chanting Jin, Jiyan, Azadi, they demanded an end to gender-based violence, state oppression, and government policies restricting women's rights. Protesters carried banners rejecting the government's withdrawal from the Istanbul Convention and calling for justice for femicide victims. Despite heavy security measures and repression, women once again made 8th of March a day of defiance, resisting state oppression, patriarchal violence, and authoritarian policies. As the government continues to erode women's rights and suppress women's movements, the women refuse to be silenced, proving that women's resistance in Turkey remains unyielding. Turkey's pro-Kurdish People's Equality and Democracy (DM) party held 8th March International Women's Day rallies across Kurdish-majority cities, concluding with a final mass gathering in Van 1. Co-chair Tülay Hatimoğlu and İmralı delegation member Pervin Buldan highlighted Abdullah Öcalan's special greetings to women and the urgent need for political reform. They also condemned the appointment of a state trustee in place of the elected mayor in Van, calling it Erdogan's last oppressive move against the will of the Kurdish people. Turkey's main opposition Republican People's Party, or CHP, has unveiled a new 20-point democratization package focusing on key reforms aimed at improving the country's political landscape. Among the proposals is the creation of a parliamentary commission to address the long-standing Kurdish issue, a move that CHP leader Özgür Özel believes is essential for genuine democratic progress. Özel, who announced the plan last week, urged President Erdogan to move beyond political maneuvering and engage in a real transition towards democracy. The package also calls for the release of sick and elderly prisoners, lifting restrictions on press freedom, and judicial reforms to align Turkey's laws with international human rights standards. In addition, the CHP has rejected the idea of drafting a new constitution under the current administration, citing concerns over the government's failure to uphold democratic principles. Instead, the opposition aims to introduce practical legislative reforms to restore democratic norms, protect human rights, and address the Kurdish issue. The package will soon be presented to the CHP Central Executive Board for approval, marking a significant step in Turkey's ongoing debate on political reforms.